anything that is repeatable, a machine AI is going to do. If you have a creative angle to it and you pour that into that prompt, it is going to be more creative. Like, you put garbage, you'll get garbage.
The biggest firms across the
Walmart,
world,
JP Morgan,
and then Adobe and all of them. And you've been in the UX UI. If that design culture was to be followed by an Indian firm,
I think it is not a culture that was defined in the US that is followed here. I think
UX design. Is it a framework? Is it a method? Or is it an approach?
this is why it's important to know the evolution of anything, right? But when it started, what is the difference between a glass and a great glass? Why do wine glasses have stems? Because you don't want to transfer the heat of your body into the glass. So that is why you have stems. Usability.
can UX be kind of related with design thinking?
Design thinking is part of UX and it's also outside UX.
What's the foundation for UX?
I think today it's in a great state, right? I want to take 2 steps back, given where we are with AI and all that. I would advise people to look at things a little differently, right? First is
Entire UX explanation that you've done so far has got everything to do from human psychology, economics, data analytics, human behavior, everything. Where's design in this? How is it created?
for me as a person, and I'll answer this a little personal.
Creative Spark Plug is a black book of creative journeys. In this podcast, we speak with creative people and record their stories. It gives insight into creative lives, inspires youngsters, and nourishes the ones feeling challenged. Today, we are speaking with Vittal. Vittal is in the creative space, and he is also the first person we'll be talking with who's into UI, UX. Yes, it is the buzzword around, but I am going to be foolish, which I am, but I will go back to the basics of trying to understand what this is all about. How did it come into being? We're going to know about his stories and his journeys for sure. And he's a brilliant storyteller. So without much ado, I am curious about multiple things about Vittal, but let's start here. You are a Chennai boy.
Yes.
You went to MCC,
Yes.
did economics.
I went to Loyola. I did economics there. MCC is a school.
Yeah.
People only know of the college,
Yeah.
but my high school was in MCC. My dad's a teacher from MCC. So
Okay.
I studied in MCC, Loyola, and I think this is the story I was telling you before. I'm dyslexic. Let me start with that. And if you look at my report card, which I never want to show my son Shlok, because I keep been telling him that I got first rank till date. But nevertheless, I was really bad at studies, right? Not because I wanted to suck at it, but because I naturally was not inclined to studies. It didn't motivate me. I found it difficult. Subconsciously started hating it a little. So I did economics. And second year of economics, I studied Loyola. And if people have seen Loyola College Chennai, it's got these huge archways. Like 2 archways define 1 classroom.
Right.
So everything's just arches, right? So it's a like open atmosphere, right? So you can enter from any side you want. So I'm sitting with these guys, my gang. My HOD is teaching, and my HOD is this very strict guy. But he's very lazy. He would never get out of the chair. Like he would not even chalk piece falls down. He'll ask someone to pick it up, but he will never get out of the chair. So he's that kind of a guy. So I'm sitting and sketching him. And then what do? You're in college, you're sitting with your friends, you nudge them and say, ye dekho, look at this, look at this. And usually, because I'm the only artist in that gang of 10 people, I usually would get a little bit of curiosity and people like, yeah, acha, no, this is awesome or this is bad, whatever. So I'm sketching him. I thought I would get a lot of, appreciation from my friends. I'm nudging them and these guys are not even looking at me and I don't know what is happening. And the first time in my life that I've been in that class, the HOD got up and he started writing on the board or not. I didn't catch the drift. Kuch ho raha tha, but I was unaware. I was still drawing and drawing finer details. Then I could feel a presence behind me, right behind me. It was the principal. The word fatty doesn't begin to cover it. Very fatty, right? And then he was a very calm person. Like this is chaos for him. But he handled it with the way a very calm principal would. He just reached over, closed the book with the pen. He said, come meet me. And he walked out. But my HOD, he became hysteric. तू गाया, तेरा TC होने वाला है, तेरा family का नाम गाया. He said all that. I was really scared. I got really worried, right? My heart is racing. I'm shitting my load, every bit of it. And then I go to meet him. Like, yeah, he's got this very calming effect. He's like the Morgan Freeman of principals, right? So I don't know if you've seen that reel. If the world is coming to an end, I want Morgan Freeman to read the news that day because it'll be very calming. Aaj hone wala hai. So he looked at me and said, he looked into the book. Everything in the book is just scribbles and doodles and art. There is no
Notes there.
no notes there.
Worth its salt.
Nothing. There's no. So he looks at it and says, okay. He's been in this field. So he said, why don't you do Viscom? So you need to understand this. मेरे family में government jobs, like it was the IIT thing to do, right? Or the engineering or the doctor equivalent, government job. If you're in government job, they're life settled. And dad did a government job. His dad did a government job. Everybody we know. There's not a single architect in that entire family. They come from a small village. We hail from a small village, right? So this is arts, right? So he said, do arts. So I go home and I ask my dad, saying that, so he says, why didn't you do Viscom? I said, listen, I'm 2 years to ho gaya. I'll have to start from scratch. Then he said, why don't you go do interior design? I know this place. I said, okay. So I took my cycle. I rode to that place. मेरे पास bike geek नहीं थे college के time. I took a cycle, went there, got a pamphlet, saw that place, I saw some sketches, got a little inspired, went home and told my dad. Mustered the courage in the evening. Didn't tell him the record card and principal.
The story was not there.
Obviously not. Well, later I found out that the principal had called my parents and spoken to them. This is after like some 25 years after that incident happened. One day my dad told me, but I didn't know this. So I went and told my dad, and my dad's a government, like he's a school teacher, right? And she's a school teacher. So this course was 50,000 bucks. So he went and borrowed the money and he gave it to me in cash. Like, next day morning, or not afternoon or whatever, I come back from college. He said, come here. He says, go join that course. I'm like, okay. And that kind of, it sinks in when the seriousness of it. But till then, I was just playful. I was just doing my stuff, going where life takes you. But now this is my decision, right? And I'm a little alarmed. So, but I take the money. And I think this is all the parvarish that we had. Even when you're teri fat rahi hai, you take the foot forward and you move forward. That's like pretty much the background I grew up in, right? तो हमारी फट रही है कि going to join this class, now I'm deciding, so is this my future? I go there, I pay, and then I start classes. I love it. The first time they gave me an assignment, and first time in my life, my parents have never seen me sit to the book, study anything till date. Like I'm in college, second year. But I start drawing and I sit on a drawing for around 8 hours and I'm doing pen and ink, rendering, draw like dots and lines. So my dad's a teacher. He didn't know what dyslexia was, that's fine. But he knew this was like a calling. He said, yeah. He looked at my mom and said, tera beta ye karne wala hai, right? So I did interior design and I got hired by the architect who was my professor. One of the architects said, come, I love pen and ink work, right? See, I would spend a lot of, like, if anybody bought their drawings, they would just bring it as sheets. I would make a case for it, like handmade paper, right? I would tie like stuff and I would draw some art, put some paint. Like I was very invested. I was very motivated, right? And this was me. And creative expression, I didn't even know there was something called creative expression, but that's literally what it was. So I'm giving it my everything and it showed. So this person says, he's been evaluating my stuff. He's one of the architects who would come there. He looked at it and said, listen, I'll give you a job. Come as a draftsman. I'm like, set. So, guy, then I had a TVS Champ. From cycle, I've graduated with TVS Champ.
Progress happening in life. Works well, yeah.
Red color, right? Guy uske ghar. Then I'm doing drawings and then I have to go to the site, right? And I love going to the site because that's where it's all becoming real, right? So I'm going there every single day. And then end of the first month, he gives me my paycheck. I'm getting paid. In the background, the house help is getting paid. Same time. I'm getting paid 350 rupees. The house help got paid 450 rupees. So then I'm like, I think I'm selling myself short. I said, okay, done deal. And those days notice period क्या था? मैं नहीं आ रहा हूँ. I'm a draftsman. Who's going to miss me? So I crossed the road. There I went. There's another firm which used to do contracting, and I take my entire drawings. Right. This person calls me for the interview. Looks at my drawings. So what do you want to do in 5 years? I am just out of college. What do you want to do in 5 years? It's like a HR question you ask people who probably Google the answer and gone there, will have some perspective. Java में 10 साल में ये लोग कर रहे हैं. I have no idea. No one has done arts in my family. No one has been an architect or interior design. Nothing. What do you want to do in 5 years? I said I want to own my own firm. I was very ballsy when I was young. I was more ballsy than I am today. I hate to admit it, but I was, yeah, responsibilities have a way of telling you to be less ballsy. But then I was like very ballsy, right? So I look at this guy and say, I want to run my own firm. So he's like, oh, I thought that was a good answer, but he's like, oh. And he's looking at my drawings. He's going, like, he's not looking at me, he's just looking at my drawings, project one, project two. Then he says, listen, we are looking for a little older people. I used to look like a tadpole. Not that I look any better now. I think I'm a fatter tadpole. I used to look like a real tadpole.
Emaciated tadpole.
Yeah, and like malnourished tadpole. Lot of hair then, right? With a lot of hair, which had no reason to be on my head. But I had a lot of hair and I was skinny. I looked like a tadpole. And I had dorky glasses just to look old, which had no power, nothing. So it's like, we want someone senior. You're very young. We want some people who've gone and tried these things, tried doing their own startup, and then come to us. And this is what I told him. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I don't think I want your job. He said, why? I said, I think you're looking for losers who did not make it. I don't think.
Not bad.
I was getting up. He's like, sit down. I said, okay. He said, that's not what I meant. I think we got on the wrong foot. I said, I'm trying to understand. You said that you're looking for people who've tried this and coming here after they've tried it. If I try this, I definitely want to be successful. Well, yeah, I had it in me, right? I had all the motivation in me. I'm like 20. I have like to look forward. I watched 5 James Bond movies, everything. Like my blood is like rushing. He's like, yeah. Then he's like, no, sit down, sit down. I said, okay. I sat down. Then he said, I want to hire you. I was very confused. But then I also wanted to know how much he'll pay me because, as you guys know, I was paid 350 rupees.
That 350 rupees had
only the previous day, which kind of hit my ego a little bit. So I said, how much will you give me? He said, how much do you want? So now मेरे दिमाग में 350 था. So now I have to ask for something substantially higher. I looked at him and said 6,000. He said, done. So I was like, should you just say yes to 6,000 bucks? Like I had, and those days 6,000 bucks was not bad money. My dad was making 12,000 bucks, right? And I'm like, 6,000 bucks? Are you serious? Like, yeah, I'll give it to you. So I didn't say, are you serious? I'm like, okay. I was playing it cool. Then he said, can I just borrow these drawings for a minute? I said, okay. So he takes the drawings. The walls are thin. I worked there. Like that day, I didn't know the walls were thin. But when you work in the same firm for like a year, then you know how thin the walls are, right? So the walls are thin, and he goes to the next room. He's showing my drawings to his draftsman. I said, drawing ऐसे होना चाहिए. I'm like, all right. I think he got a good deal. So that's why he's so confident. So I worked there, and interestingly, that was a great experience because it was completely civil. They threw me in the deep end on civil, not about drawings, right? They would. So I was doing that stuff. I did that for around 2-3 months over there. And one of the people who was in that own organization of the design organization reached out to me and said, I'm starting my firm. Why don't you join me as a partner? And I'm like, partner? Why not? Okay. How much will you pay me? She's like, whatever we make, 50% of it is yours. I had found very, very interesting. So I went to this guy and I said, hey, I know it's only been 3 to 4 months, but he'd extracted good work from me. I had a great relationship. Like he slowly started being like the mentor, the person who owned that firm.
Who? Can you name him or?
His name was Ramesh, but I don't remember. Like one thing, before we go any further into this podcast, I have the world's worst memory, right? So for me, names have always been a challenge.
Sure.
In fact, you know how the president goes and there's always someone prompting, and this person is this person is this person. My mom, my wife is prompting saying that, yeah, this is Prakash. I'm like, how Prakash? How? Because I remember the person, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah, fair enough.
coming back to this, so this man, I went and told him saying that, hey, he's like, yeah, go for it, right? Here, you have my complete blessing, and you want to collaborate at some point, let me know, right? We're all here for you. Great. Started my business with this person. So this person that I started, this lady, her name is Liz, right? She was
Liz is Liz, right?
Liz, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth Joseph. I know this because she's my partner. We went and registered the company and also. Thoda, zyada jaan
Better,
paas hai.
better than Ramesh.
Yeah, so Liz and I started this company called Designers, lack of creativity. It's D apostrophe signers. We came up with it overnight. We went, printed visiting cards, and we started going and meeting people on interior design. And then, interestingly, one person that we met was a doctor, right? And we were doing like some small work in the house, like hall me thoda bahut. So we got talking, and he said, "Hey, why don't you pitch an idea? I have this room that I want to create for myself." तो I went full atlas shrugged on it. I'm like, तुम करते क्या है? कब खाते हो? कब पीते हो? Because why? Because
Yeah.
it was right there. Someone said, do it, giving you a blank canvas. I said, okay, tell me your habits. And obviously, there are things that you want to do as a designer you never got. I'm a big fan of Mani Ratnam, right? The first part of Mani Ratnam's life. The new part of Mani Ratnam's life, respect him, but I love the initial work, right? So if you look at Mani Ratnam's work, there is a lot of cement, right? He believed in those materials. He would always show a house which is like either not finished, right? He always showed that early beginning life of someone very nicely, and a lot of dim lights and all that. So a big influence on me. So I'm like, Maniratnam, I channel my inner Maniratnam, and I would drop perspectives on the fly, which is, I think, literally why Liz wanted to work with me, because I had a very steady hand. I would draw like perspectives in no time, and I would sketch it, render it, right, and I would also sell it. So I went, I asked him, and I sat and sketched something for him. We made a bed out of bricks. Like it's a big flat bed, like it's small elevation in his room. And you walk into his bed. So there's one step, then you walk into the next step. And then there's this huge ass granite slab because the man eats there. Because he says, I come back, I have a shower from the hospital, and then I eat, like I gorge. Then I read. Then I watch television, then I get up and I'm back in the hospital. This is me. So,
Sota kab hai?
like, खाने पड़ा, सोया.
But that's his schedule.
That's
That's
it.
his-
And that's it.
That's the
That
spot.
was the so
वहीं खाया वहीं सोया वहीं
exactly. So it had like a big granite slab. Like obviously he had cooks and people who would come and serve him the food and pick up the food and go. This big granite slab where that was available. He could do that. That was the first part of the drawing. Then it had a trench where he could keep a book, all his books. You can pull out a writing pad, full kia drawing. As in I went berserk. This is not what was done in Chennai those days. Like
Right.
people like, you want a bed, then they will draw a bed, right? My bed ईंट से बना रहा हूँ. ईंटी, right? ईंट is ईंट. It's a bed, and that it's got a trench and it's got this. And we're like, how do you make sure that it's all filed so that it doesn't get hit, it's smooth it? Little crude. I would not say I didn't know a lot of things. Now I know more, but then it was my second project, I think. He bought it. He said, go for it. We executed it. He enjoyed it like anything. Then we got my first computer. It had Photoshop, some pirated version of Photoshop. And I was playing the fool around, right? And I was making collages. I loved it. So now, what happened? Gradually, we would go into companies, small companies who were doing interior design with us. And they would be like, hey, do you know how to make a website? Like, yeah, of course I know how to make a website. था क्या उसमें? I can do it. Confidence tha. More than anything, confidence. Like, there are two people in the room. One person knows how to do it. I need to figure out how to do it, but I'll figure it out. If he can do it, I can do it. Utna confidence. Yeah, I can do a website. So I started making websites. Then I started getting paid for it. And I was making around a lot of
This
money.
is while you're running the interior
Design firm.
Perfect. Continue.
Then I'm like not going out in the hot sun, not fighting it out with carpenters. I'm sitting in the AC of my house. As in पहला AC खरीदा computer के साथ because they told that computer को AC चाहिए.
AC चाहिए.
बच्चों के लिए AC चाहिए. My dad said no way. Computer को AC चाहिए. Of course लेके आएंगे. So there was an AC in that room. तो I'm like AC में बैठ के काम कर रहा हूँ. And then I went to this actor. His name is Raja Krishnamurthy. Right. Interestingly, my wife's family is very close to him, and we know him now I know him on both lines, right? I was doing a small piece of interior design work with him, and then he was stuck with something like a PPT or something. And I was talking to him, I helped him out. Then he said, "Did you design aata hai?" I said, "Haan aata hai." He's like, "There's an interview going on in the company that I work." He was the head of HR in that company. Like, he was a very established man. He was an actor, but he was also the head of HR. He's also an inspiration for me. So I met Raja, and Raja said, "Go to Polaris, just tell them that I sent you, and go and attend an interview. It's a walk-in interview." This is a walk-in. मैं गया. I was just telling him. And I had just learned Flash. Right? I had done this website for this
Yeah,
guy.
listening to that term Flash after so long.
Yeah.
It's like irrelevant today, but in those days it was the thing.
I still think it was a fantastic software, right? And Adobe does what it does. It takes great software and kills them. And also does great stuff because I worked there and I did some cool stuff there. But they also did this. They took Flash and then one day sunset. So Flash. And I used to make websites in Flash. So I met this guy called Ishwar Prasad, whose place we were doing interior design. He had some, they had their own startup those days when startup was not a term. It was called business then. And they were doing software for machinery, right? So he and his wife had this small company. They're part of the Lala Masala family. And you go inside Lala Masala, then suddenly there's a very modern grey building which does not look like the rest of Lala Masala. Like a small haunt. These guys are making software there. And we were doing some interior work there. And then they said, "Why don't you do the website in Flash?" And I only knew very little Flash there. But I said, "Website चाहिए, बना दूंगा." बनाना शुरू कर दिया. And then I joined a class because थोड़ी फट रही थी. What if I don't deliver this? Because delivery is key. So by the time they came to the part that I didn't know in Flash, which is why I rejoined the course for some 4,000 rupees or whatever, in that course, I had already delivered the website. CK delivered it, right? Because hands-on.
Yeah.
So when I went to Polaris, so there's this guy, Tangamani, I adored Tangamani. He's called Tongues, right? Tangam is gold, right? He's known as Tongues in the place. And he's the boss man there. As in, he's the PM. And he walks because he's the most creative guy there. And everybody like, Tongues. So he's taking my interview. So he's full of Tushin. I am full of Tushin. We both are looking at each other. And he's like, "There ko Flash aata hai?" I'm like, "Haan, aata hai." Then how do you do this in Flash? I had no idea how to do that in Flash. But I knew for a fact that he did not know how to do that in Flash. So I gave him the most confident answer ever. I'm like, "उधर जाओ, ऐसे क्लिक करो, उधर एक एक्शन स्क्रिप्ट का बॉस आएगा, उधर लगाओ और तुम ऐसे ट्यूनिंग करो, आ जाएगा." वो उसने लिखा. I saw him write it. ठीक है. And then he gave me I got hired. 1 month into the job, I go and tell him, "Tangs, I have a confession." He's like, "What?" "The question you asked me." He's like, "Yes." I have no idea what the answer was. He laughed just like you did. He's like, "Kamina." ठीक है. But तू बहुत confidence से answer दिया. I said, "I knew for sure you didn't know." He's like, "Oh, you could see it." I'm like, "Yeah, देख." Yeah. So if you take my entire life and divide it into the art part of it, there's only two aspects of it. One is the art part of it, the other is the people part of it. That's it, right? That is literally the story. So the most genuine connections I've done is through work. Some of the most genuine connections I've ever made, including Tangamani. Tangs and I are still friends, right? And we go like full gali ke saath, we discuss and stuff. So that was my first job as a graphic designer. Like, you just go and design a website. And obviously I had a lot of kida. That's one thing, is I had a lot of kida, very curious, right? If you can look at what helped me move forward in anything, it's just curiosity. Okay, करते कैसे हैं? If someone said, "Can you do this?" my answer would always be, "हाँ करूँगा." I would not say, "I don't know." I say, "करूँगा." I will not say, "I know, I don't know." I said, "I'll get it done." That was my attitude. Right? So they're like, I was doing some websites in that place, and then they created a group to create only websites in the software. It's a SI company.
You're still with Polaris.
Yeah, Polaris. So Polaris is a software company. They used to make software for banks.
Yes.
Right? Arun Jain is the owner, and it's a fantastic company. Like, I sharpened my skill. Like, that was the foundation of my entire design, the digital design life in Chennai. And
Which year are we talking about?
so again, memory favors me, but subtract 25 years, 2000,
2001,
2002. So I go there. So they pull all these people together and they say, we'll form a team which is called Web Lab, हम website बनाएंगे, and then we'll sell these websites. Love it, right? So I start making websites. I'm enjoying it. Then I take one of the websites I made, which is for WebLab, weblab.com. Full flash में किया. Terminator movie had just come then. There's so many things like life goes a full circle on how things tie together. So in Terminator movie trailer, which came, they had this animation effect where, because Mercury Man, right?
Yeah.
So you know how in the airport olden days there used to be these things which will flip to tell you the flight number.
Yeah.
I don't know what they. Yeah.
And it's still iconic actually. In movies, you still get to see.
So what they did is they took that effect and they made it like 1000x, like really fast, and all the pixels will move. So it looked like there's a pixel wave on your screen, and because that is literally the Terminator, that Mercury Man kind of a thing. And that the trailer was made in Flash. Kida, he made it. I want to make it because it's very cool. But they did it with Flash scripting. I don't know that much Flash scripting. So I paused every frame, right? Zoom and paused every frame by frame, and I drew those pixels.
Oh.
Okay, put it on an overlay and drew those pixels. Those is very easy, right? You just go to your file repository, the Flash files, extension files you'll get. You then put it in your hard disk, and you go play it on Flash.
Right.
Then you pull it out, zoom karke. I have drawn. Each of it must have at least some 400 dots in the screen at any point in time, and they keep moving. So I've taken that one project, kiya main, and then what you do is once you've created like some 10 sample files, then you loop it. So after that, you don't have to work hard. You can just loop it. And I created a website. I loved it, right? It was crazy interesting for me. I took that, put all my, nights in it, and I used to smoke a lot those days. बाहर आया, cigarette पिया, वापस गया, enjoyed doing it. Alone in the office. Those days you could play music, right? The designers were the only people who had CD-ROMs in their computer. I don't even know.
Good old days.
Good old days, right? Nobody else had access, so the only way you could get music is no streaming those days. CD-ROM. So मैं लेके जा रहा हूँ, गाना बजा रहा हूँ, and I'm making this in the night. Then there was this ad agency which used to run these competitions, right? And I went and submitted this website as one of the entries. And Sharad Haksar, who's a very famous photographer in Chennai, he has also submitted. Obviously, Sharad Haksar. You go to every place, like every cool haunt in Chennai, his work, right? He's a fantastic photographer, right? There was PC Sriram those days and Sharad Haksar. These are the names. So he's also submitted his website. So, and now obviously I had no hope. And that website won an award.
Wow.
And maza aaya, right? Like, I went and told my girlfriend, there is this facilitation for me, please come. Right? I was feeling so proud that we got that award. And that is how I rooted myself into design. This is my early transformation from physical to digital form. So when I was in Polaris, when I started my career, there was no term called UX.
Yes. Firstly, what exactly is UX, UI?
I'll tell you.
Are you doing both? Because what I understand is there are two slightly different sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
They can exist together, but there are two completely different things. So which part of the two are you doing? And how did you move forward from wherever we stopped?
Honestly speaking, the definitions around it are simple. So all this evolved and today it's in a state of maturity, right? When I started, it was nascent. So first of all, there was graphic design. And I will tell you this, right? Even for those who were doing graphic design, we were selling it to the West, right? We were selling to the US. Predominantly all the companies I worked for were selling things to UK or US.
Right.
The projects from Europe and the Asia were not very prevalent those days. The clients were predominantly from there. And they would be very hesitant about giving design projects to us. Because you're like, हाँ तुम लोग India में हो, you use Indian colors. Like an assumption, right? But fundamentally, things that helped me was getting aware of what was there. Exposure is literally it. So first thing, there's exposure of what is good design, right? Or what is relevant design, I would say that. So when I started doing that, which is understanding what is relevant from a design what do you call it? From a design landscape, from a color schema, right? What aesthetics work, what imagery works, what fonts work. Though that is your research.
Right.
So predominantly that was the research we used to do.
Curiosity, learning, your own research.
Yeah. So when we were doing our research, right, we understood that design has, you fundamentally take functionality, represent it so that people can come to the site, find that information. Hey, what is your digital website today? You're giving information to a person, information and tasks, right? Basically, that's break it down, it just becomes that. So now what happened was people are doing it the way they did. It is crude, right? You put information, you put a little bit of art in it and throw it in front of the customer. It is a website. IRCTC is also a website. It also lets you book tickets.
Yeah.
The question is it something that you can do your work easily without any hindrances? No. You will die signing in. You forgot your password, you will die. Right? It's very difficult to get through that site. You will not remember anything of that. So over a period of time, lot of people across the world, right, who are in the field of human-computer interaction, realize that when it comes to human and computers, right, when the way a person is doing a particular task, he or she, right, you need to understand what they want to achieve and present the information to them more contextually.
Right.
So they are your users. So before that, what we did was we took information, we took functionality, like we'll come and say, I want to create a website where people can come and understand about Daikin air conditioners. That's your website.
Right.
So what is our job? When did the company start? There'll be an about us section. What are the products? There'll be a product section. Standard template. It's very easy to arrive at templatize any of that, right?
Right.
And interestingly, what we're doing is we're also making designs which people would find things where they would expect to find it. That became a structure, right? You would go to a website, you would always think that there will be a menu on the left or on the top.
Right.
You would expect it.
Right.
You open Windows. That is what those were the machines available those days prevalently in India. You would expect to have the cross button, minimize button, maximize button in a particular place.
Yeah.
No matter you open MS Paint, you open Doc, it works.
Every window works the same.
Anything. Fundamentally, some aspects of it is positioned in the same place because you don't need to learn everything over and over again. So now what has happened is you've taken a principle of behavior, right? That people come here, they expect these things. You don't want to keep it in different places. Otherwise, they'll have to go and figure out and learn. And you don't want them to waste time on that. You rather want them to read about Daikin air conditioners, right? So what they would do is they would want to bring your attention to the important stuff. And when you would want to come back to the website, you would want to find it in the same place. So those were things which slowly started solidifying as patterns. And then it was evolving into a concept called human-computer interaction, which later translated into user experience, right? It is what the users experience. So in a nutshell, the objective, and this is not written in a book or this is not a definition which I'm quoting from Google. The way I'm explaining it, right? I'm sure there is a textbook version
That's okay.
which contradicts, not contradicts, which is different.
Yeah.
But the essence is this. So when you're creating a task for a user, you are going to build it on some rules, right? By which is simple to do, it is intuitive, right? And if you get stuck, you know how to move forward, right? These were the early principles of user experience. Now, what happens is this evolves. Like obviously, like how the minute people have started with one set of, one school of thought, people start building a lot more rules around it. And today it's in a state of maturity, which is like crazy, right? Now, what you achieve today, when like Bashop is coming to the website, we first know it's Bashop.
Right.
And we also understand that, hey, Bashop came and he was looking at the Daikin website on Facebook, right? So I'm not going to wait for Bashop to go and click 5 times in my website and bring that information. I will bring that information to Bashop right up front earlier in the journey. So there are things like user journey, all this starts becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So first, it was basically, we'll make it intuitive, we'll make it simple. Then it started evolving into things like, hey, let us make some journeys, right? Where did the user go? Like, you would be surprised how when you start doing UX, when you start learning UX, things that you learn will be so intuitive, like, oh, are people not doing it? And the truth is, people are not doing it, right? So, structure, prioritization of content. If there is content and a page full of content, how do you decide which content comes on top, which comes on the bottom, right? How do you prioritize content? All these have been, obviously today it's in the state of maturity, but those things were forming. Like people are forming opinions about it, people are forming new rules about it. And one of the companies which did this, like there is Jacob Nielsen, who's literally the father of UX. And obviously he has written a lot of books, he's the courses. And then there is a person called Eric Schoffer who brought Human Factors International to India. And you would go and you can learn about UX, and those things are called usability, right? So user usability evolved into user experience. The word UI, there's a lot of misconceptions on the word UI, right? Because in the industry, there's an overlap of this word, one on the creative field and one on the technology field.
What does UR stand for?
UI stands for user interface. So
There's nothing called UR.
There is.
Okay.
User research. I'll come to that.
Okay.
Right? Today, we're in a state of evolution. There are some streams of user experience which constitutes user experience. One of it is UXR, which is user experience research, right? Then there is UX. I'll come to that.
Yeah,
because
sure.
It's got structure and value to it in the later part of the story. But where we are in the early beginning of it, all these rules are getting formed. And if you created something, you wanted to make sure that it was usable.
Right.
And the measure of usability was how quickly can you do it? How well can you do it? Right? Efficiency, effectiveness, and satisfactions are the foundation bed of user experience. Right? If you water it down, those are the principles on which this entire UX movement has started. So which means it says, hey, you come to the Daikin website. Are you spending 1 hour to do it? Right? Or are you spending exactly to book a visit to your your company for someone consultant to come? Did you do it in less than 30 seconds or less than 1 minute? So there is a gameplay of speed which came into then they're like, oh, I had to click 25 times to get something. So number of clicks became a measure. Though it's a very rudimentary way to measure it, and a lot of people think that is good user experience, it is not. But when it evolved, it had a lot of meaning when they said, why do I have to click 10, 15 times to do what I have to do? And you should see where the industry is evolved today. It's just amazing. Like I can tell you how AI plays a role in it and all that, right? But having said that, efficiency, the first part. Effectiveness is the second part of it. Effectiveness is how well do you do a task, right?
Interesting that you say this, because generally, I mean, I did attend the Design Up last year, and it was on UX UI. I still hadn't, I mean, till the time we discussed now, I hadn't understood how UI is a design perspective. But now the way you put it, that there are two parts to it. There is the visual side, which says how much color, which color, where, what logo, what icon is in which shape. That's all a graphics.
Visual
part.
design.
That's the design.
Yeah.
And then there is the technology side to it, which decides when you click on X icon, what happens and what are the backend programming that have to happen.
No, it not just the X icon. If you go and click on a menu item, if you go and click on anything that you've created as a graphic, now you bring it to life with some amount of code, the front end part of it. And when you click on it, it does a task. So that functionality is done by a front end developer. And those front end developer again found its name in the industry a little later. Those days it was just an UI developer. So there's a UI designer, there's a UI developer. There's nothing called usability when I started. Like people wouldn't even say user experience design or usability. Are you a UI developer or a UI designer? Or are you a graphic designer? Because web graphic design is what they were called. So that is the foundation. That is how this all evolved.
So UI developer needs to know coding.
Yeah,
a particular language, whatever is in current.
From the time I started till today, interestingly, HTML is like being
the universal language.
But obviously today there is so much more technology that goes into it. There's scripting, JavaScripting, right? So interface is like the canvas, right? You're going to start, and no matter what you create, it will be an interface.
Right.
You
So for
create
a
a
potter,
website.
his clay is his interface.
Yeah. For us, the digital medium, when you're looking at the internet, anything that shows up on the website is an or web page, what is rendered is an interface, right? So there is an art aspect to it and there is a science aspect to it. The art is married and brought to life through the science, which is the coding. The art aspect of it was called UI design. The science aspect of it, which is coding and making it working website, is the UI development and UI coding, right? This nobody paused during that time to say we should call it two separate things, right? Naturally, the overlap was existed. People got confused in meetings. You'd call a UI developer for a meeting where you needed visual design help. So this chaos was there for a long time. And the mix-up in the industry with this word continued because it was not a deal breaker. Because eventually you would figure out what it was in 5 minutes of a conversation. So it existed. But then, from anything being an interface, where you brought in the human computer interaction aspect of it, brought in human behavior or the needs of what the users would need, right? Then you started trying to make it into more usable, right? And the famous quotes. This is in the early quotes, which like if you went to Pico's those days. There's this poster saying that just because this place looks like a garage, you will not find a screwdriver, right? So that poster stayed with me because obviously, similarly, one of the first things when I read about usability when I was very young, and people who started bringing in this human computer interaction aspect of it, a lot of great minds started arriving at a lot more rules, a lot more structure, so that it could be made repeatable. People could repeat it, make it into a process. They made it processes around it, and that started firming up in the industry. And those days, it was called usability, right? If you go, and this for people, all of us who are interior designers, like I think that's common with all of us, right? We have that thread running in all the three of us. If you go to a door and you have this flat bar, then you know it is to push. And if you have a handle, you know it is to pull, right? So you're making it intuitive, right? When a person is going out, the person is in a rush, then they don't need to pull it. They can just push it and then go out, right? So a lot of product design, I think, there's a great overlap between a lot of good product design, which takes into consideration how a product would be used, what is the situation or where this is going to be unpacked, what will be the things around it. For example, lot of Apple designs, when they give you the product, you don't need to go running for a cutter because they know that they have this fine thread which is embedded in the box that you pull out. I honestly think those are user experience examples, right? There's someone who actually thought, how would this person use this in a given situation, right? If you're going to, the very famous example of the cars in the US, when they would go get one particular ice cream, the car would not start. But when they went and got any other ice cream, the car would be kept running and it would run or whatever. And then they found out the behavior pattern was that particular ice cream, it would take a little longer for them to get and the car would go cold and it would not start. So predominantly a lot of us everywhere, native people everywhere, when they started making their designs come to life, emphasized on or focused on bringing in where is this going to be used, who's going to be using it, what is the environment in which they're going to be using it, what is the purpose of this. So a lot of existential questions found a lot of good roots, and that is your core base of usability, right? So when you start making a website, for example, let us say you're creating a website, okay, and you're going to create a website for artists, okay, and this is for artists to go and put all their artwork, okay. So first, what you would say, scan all your artwork, okay, put it inside the website. Rudimentary, it's got functionality. Then you'll be like, okay, we'll make it 3 MB per file. None of the artwork will ever be 3 MB. Right? So a person is struggling 25 minutes in zipping it, cropping it, putting it in 5 different softwares to put it on your website. So now if you understood the environment of an artist, right, what would make it easy is just throw your stuff inside we will condense it and we will take it as 3 MB format. But when you're going to pull it back, you'll not be able to print it because you'll need high resolution. So give them that information up ahead. So that is a user-friendly design, because now you've considered where this activity is going to take place. What is the person who's going to do the activities? What are their limitations, right? His or her limitations, not from an ability point of view, but from the environment. We designed something and then we actually considered how many power cuts might happen, right? This is for a geography which had a lot of power cuts, right?
Right.
So we're like, what happens when you have a power cut? I was designing a website, I think early days were Indigo Airlines. And what we realized is that people open their website, they go look at a flight option, and then there's no activity, and then they're sessioning out. And once it's sessioned out, once they go back and search for the same flight, they have to put all the information right from the number of people, all that, right? Frustrating. What did we understand? So this is where user experience research comes in. Once we understand what the user is doing, which is what they've kept your web page open, but they're going to go IBBO, they're going to other sites, and they're checking for cheaper flights. Right. So this is something that they would naturally do, right? So you expect this out of the user. So what would you do if you're going to time off? You give them a warning saying that, hey, do you want to extend this for another 10 minutes so that you can do what you're doing? Right. If you don't want them, what is most frustrating is the page sessions out, and then you have to go give your from mix.
And feed in all the data over and over again.
Yeah, from to number of people. So what you will also understand is, and this is what I've seen in my experiences, our patience when it's internet started and when like dial-up connection, like to get an internet connection, you go quick, 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 that's going to take 10 minutes for you to even log in. Our patience was very high. Today we are in the day of Instagram because we are trained to have patience which is less than 10 seconds, right? We are trained to have patience of 3 seconds. So when a user is so distracted, right? Naturally, and that is, and I think filmmakers are making movies for the second format, right? When they're making a movie today, they expect the movie to be so linear that even if you're looking at your phone and come back to the movie
You'll
should
still
make
be able to
sense,
catch on.
right? So according to me, it is good and bad because now the movies are getting boring.
Yeah.
But having said that, that takes into consideration the mindset of the user. Right? Today, the mindset of the user has got no patience. Right? They are not coming to your website and spending 25 minutes to figure things out.
Yeah.
First, you need to know, you need to offer them what they need to find it easily, then you need to give it to them in small bites. And if they get distracted and go away, you need to retain their information. Right? So all these rules, for example, now remembering what you did in the website, when you come back, playing that back to you has become a big important rule of usability. So I'm just breaking it down and taking examples to do this. But what happened in the industry was people got together and put in structure and processes better than the way I'm articulating today, right? Obviously, because these are people who wrote books and they spent hours. I'm just articulating on the fly. But they had time and they composed it and they made it into process. So first thing that became very famous was the process of doing usability, right? And the early days was understand what the user wants and cook it into your design. So that was the genesis, right? Creating user specific, bringing in the voice of the customer to what you're creating is the foundation bed of usability. It evolved into user experience because it is not just the user's ability to do, it was about the experience. Because now we are moving towards delight, not just being functional. Now there's a transition from making something very useful, making it simple, making it contextual, into a journey of making it delightful, right? So it became about the overall experience. Like this is a very simple example, right? You go to Blinkit and imagine you go and you have a fantastic beard, you're buying beard grooming stuff. You buy gel, you buy oil, you buy, a beard comb, everything you put it on your cart. And then they ask you for your address, you give your address, you confirm your address. And then when you press submit, it says 2 items are not there. How do you feel?
It's a bad experience.
You're frustrated, right? And then because the competition is not a 5-minute walk, the competition is just another window, and that is Swiggy. And if they have captured it, your brain and Do you know the watch example? The minute I went to brain, I'm drifting.
Yeah,
right?
no, you're not. Go ahead.
So if I've been wearing this watch on my left hand all my life. So if I take this watch and put it on, and I obviously this is not my lines. I heard it somewhere. You slap it on your right hand, then within 5 minutes, you are slowly itching to move the watch to your left hand. Your brain is signaling, right?
Yeah, happens.
And within 1 hour, you've really considered your life choices into moving that watch. And you will move that watch to your left hand. Predominantly 9 out of 10 people are doing this. Because the brain wants the path of least resistance,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Now that we are designers, I will give you my other famous quote. Do you know why we like nature so much? Like, everybody likes going to a holiday and looking at nature, right? And I'm a little deep rooted when it comes to this and what I do. So I'm explaining this in that context. We go to, let's say, a holiday and we're looking at nature. We feel so calm and relaxed. The reason is the human eye, when it looks at a color, it has to focus like a camera to absorb it.
Hmm.
The only two colors it doesn't have to focus or do any work is blue and green. So when you're looking at it, it is sending a signal to your brain saying, boss, chill. Everything is great. Everything is cool. Similarly, right, I give you the watch example. When you go to a website and you're finding the experience frustrating, and then next time you have a Swiggy and a Blinkit, and you had a better experience Swiggy, your brain is going to choose the path of least resistance, the convenience, right? Because your life's work is not ordering that beard cream. Your life's work is the other important things. This is one of the activities. And when you're doing this activity, you have to make it frictionless. You make it easy, right? You make it like, I love the way Amazon takes money out of your wallet, right? Their purchase funnel is the best. You slide into it. There is frictionless. Like even before you know it, you're given the OTP and go ahead. See, now people are not just looking at translating functionality into customer centric contextual design. They're looking at how can we make this addictive? How can we make this like dependable more than addiction, right? Addiction is a stronger word, but more dependable. How do they just rely on the design and say that I go here, I will not lose my money, I will not waste my time.
It's like a repeat pattern with Swiggy. Friday night you Swiggy eat.
Oh, that is a fantastic case. Those are just fantastic usability case studies. Right around New Year's, when Swiggy says, boss, I know that you need ice. Or Saturday night, when Swiggy says, do you need ice? Right? That is bringing your human behavior and pulling it in front in the user journey. One thing which you'll realize is there's a journey. If you enter a product, if you're entering a website, naturally you will fall into, you're going to do something. So there's a journey. Either you're going to cancel a ticket or you're going to buy a ticket, right? Or you're going to buy extra leg space, one of those things. They're all small journeys. So now the question is, if I know what you want, right, how can you move that ahead in the journey in a meaningful way by which I'm baiting you and making it more interesting, easy for you? And you're like, yeah, ye to karne aaya tha, kar dunga, right? So that is called personalization. Okay. That is a very big science and that is a big, what do you call it? Offering from many organizations to their customer. There's a team which does personalization, usability, and personalization teams work together to see how can we bring the value that the customer is looking for ahead in the journey, right? So, but all this revolves around understanding user behavior, users' need, users' environment, right? There are apps which are morning apps. And in London, if you're going to be using that app, it knows that you're going to go on a tube and lose signal for some time, and you will have an offline version of that. Now, that is understanding users and taking that information and baking it into the design, right? So, mota, what is it, right? It is the voice of the customer that you're taking it, right? You're bringing into your design. So, while you're doing it, obviously, the more you do it, the more patterns you're going to find in the process in which you need to do. And those things become the new user experience levers, right? So the evolution is you started with something rudimentary. Now you establish processes. Now today, where we are in the journey of user experience, it is evolved into something where we're looking at not just experience delight, right?
Hmm.
when do you need to delight the user? Does the user have to be delighted every time they come to the website? Not really, right? Knowing when to delight the user, bringing that information, like all that is focus of what you're doing. Now, there's also AI. So there are some very cool things that are happening. So if you want to jump into that, you can jump into that.
You've explained what UX is in detail. Can UX be kind of related with design thinking?
Oh, such a good question. And I'll explain this to you. Oh, this is my favorite topic. So design thinking is part of UX and it's also outside UX, right? Design thinking is a problem solving framework. Okay. So fundamentally, what is happening in early days, if you look at it, when we did usability, we'd be like, okay, we would start this, we would do some user understanding, user research, we would do some competitive analysis, we would get that information, and then we would take that information into, what do you call it, drawing a user journey, right? Doing the entire map of what the users will do. We'll optimize the journey, right? The objective is once you draw the existing journey, and when you take the user insights and you redraw it, then you're reflecting upon that information into the journey, then the journey is optimized, right? You're making it better. Right. And then you take the journey and on top of it, you start building pages, prototypes. You take the prototypes, this very famous concept called usability testing, which is you take that and then you test it with users, those prototypes, and get feedback, incorporate that, test it again. Early, the more you test, right, the more you don't need to redo things after coding.
Right.
So this is a good place to catch it. Then we hand it over to the people who code it, the people take it and code it. This was the process, right? But then obviously with evolution, with what is happening, I think the design thinking is from IDEO.
Yeah.
Yes, it's from IDEO, right?
Yeah.
These guys at IDEO came up with this framework and it's a beautiful framework. And what it does, it like what it does beautifully is, but having said that, when there is a product team, right? Now, there's a business team. Let us say, I'll keep it simple. There's a business team. Like you are the people who run the business.
Sure.
Right? You want to create a very specific service offering. Okay. And saying that you are only going to be designing bars. Both of you are, people who only design bars, right? Nothing else. You don't do hospitals, it's just specific to bars, right? And these people who are coming to your website are very specific. So you want to take them to a specific usage. So now you are the business. You have this idea and then you've spoken to someone in your team who has this idea. Now there's someone who's gone and understood what users want, not the business wants. That person is there. And there's a person who's going to be implementing it. What has always happened, and I've seen this happen, is that you have the core business need, but you have ideas as well. You have information as well. You know what your entire business hypothesis of this comes from your own research. Right. And obviously you're a person of the business, right? You know the industry, you know the domain. Then there is a team for which you work, you're given that information to them. So there is definitely loss of information. And also what happens is we don't have access, like the people who are designing this, the user experience team and the usability folks, they don't have access to you. You're a busy guy. And now if you now just take this into the people that we work with who run industries, they are not available at your every meeting to come and tell you this is what I need. You don't get their time. And you built something. So what happens? You've sat, you've done your own competitive analysis, you've done your own process. You're taking it back and that is getting shot down. You're doing rework. You're going back to the drawing board. So one of the things is, and now I'm just giving you one aspect of it. Now let us say you spent $500,000 on buying a particular technology. Okay. And that technology is implemented. What you want as a new thing that you want to take to your clients needs one aspect of it which this technology does not have. If I predominantly compose designs and take it to your technology team, and they're like, ये क्या है? ये तो हम कर ही नहीं सकते, हमारे पास capability नहीं है इसके लिए, और एक 800 million or 800K dollars we need. So what is happening is, in this entire process of getting this thing into form, there is information which is kept with some people. It's like, they're not sharing it, not because they don't want to, but there's not been a proper process to get it. There's usually a question. If I come to you and spend 1 hour with you, you're going to tell me something and I'm going to take this as input.
Right.
5 days from now, I come and show you a website, but there are more things in your head that is not reflecting, and you're like, but this only meets half of what I need. The truth is, we've not spent enough time with you. So design thinking is a framework where first thing which I strongly believe is it brings everyone to the table.
All the stakeholders come to the table.
Stakeholders is the right
Yeah.
word, but
I'm not saying it from a business point of view.
I'm
to anybody-
exactly right.
yeah.
I'm just trying to emphasize on people who are required for the ship to move forward. Right. I was doing this project for Malayalam Manorama once, and someone came up with an idea who's part of the marketing team, who was just attending the design thinking workshop because they wanted to be part of it, but came with an idea which is phenomenal, right? So what is happening is a lot of people have their ideas. So design thinking is a framework which brings all of this groups, right? And it gets information from them in a process called discovery, right? So they discover information and they take that information and they start building on it, right? Then Google came and said, hey, you're doing design thinking and this design thinking is going on in such a long winded way. I will time box it into 5 days and came up with something called design sprint. So design sprint is just time boxing the design thinking principles. It's built on top of it. But what it does it beautifully is first it is structured in such a way that we get all of you and we do exercises in which you are just sharing. Like the research team which has done the user research, probably you don't know what all your users have told because you're a business person. You just know from the business aspect of it. But there's a usability user research person who's gone and gathered so much information, who's bringing it and first sharing it. Everybody is sharing all the information. First, there is just a lot of information, and everybody from all, like the technology team is sharing information of what this solution should be. Everything comes together, and that process of first expanding your thinking is right. It's called a double diamond framework, right?
Right.
It is 2 diamonds.
Yes, it is.
Right. And what happens is in any part of the diamond, you get stakeholders, right? Like so many stakeholders who give you lots. So here you're just opening up the scope, just pouring in information, right? And then what they will do, they will use a method of filtering it, saying that let's vote on it. Like you all give ideas. Now let us vote on it, and then we will bring that ideas, narrow it down to
The fat is gone, the irrelevance is gone.
Consensus is built. I think that is the biggest part of it, because you might, it's not just fat. It might be things that I'll do it later, right? I need this. I want to do this. But these 3 things are more important. Prioritization.
A lot of parameters come down to one point.
It is filtering. It is prioritizing. So basically, this framework helps you do that. So this double diamond is basically divided into 2 parts. One is understanding what problem to solve. What is the right problem to solve? And then building the solution around it. So this one is the problem diamond and this one is the solution diamond. So here people sit and they deliberate about the problem. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And that is big because you don't know what hippo is, right? I'm sure, like hippo, the highest paid person's opinion.
Oh,
so what happens is, and this is true, and I think the reason you're laughing is you can relate to it so much. Predominantly, historically, the shape of what happens or the solution is a lot closer to what the hippo wants.
Yeah.
What the hippo wants.
The driving factor becomes that.
The person who's paying for it or the person who's the highest paid person, their opinion starts changing.
It's not a free world anymore.
But I'll tell you what's interesting. One thing is now, let us say, because I like Bashuv's beard more, which I think everybody knows. Let us say he is the hippo and you are another stakeholder. So now Bashuv comes and says, boss, aise banna hai. But you never had the opportunity to tell Bashuv saying that, hey, but we can do it like this. When we are getting everybody's information on the table and we're putting it, what we're also building is Bashuv's empathy on what other people are saying. And if I agree with what you're saying more, and he agrees with what you're saying more, they will vote for it. And Bashuv also understands that that is of value to what we're building. So this is a beautiful way to elevate it, right? So this framework does that very nicely.
It offsets the almost the veto that the power has.
Exactly, and that is not what you want. You
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah,
build
yeah.
a
You don't
solution.
want to be vetoed.
That also works if you're in an environment not like North Korea.
Sure, but
Yeah.
again, North Korea is a framework to ensure that this framework doesn't come in.
Yeah, exactly. The objective of that is different. So the design thinking is a problem solving framework.
Correct. Correct.
And design sprint is taking that problem solving framework in one step further and putting it in a time box. What you do in 2 dimensions is you first get a lot of the ideas and then you filter it down. Right? This is literally the shape of the diamond. It goes
Yeah,
up and
yeah.
down. There are points in which, so one part of it is just discovery. One part of it is empathy building. You're building empathy on the problem. You're building empathy for your users. You're building empathy for the technology stakeholders are saying that you want to build a ship, but guess what? The technology that you paid for, you can get a speedboat. On that speedboat, what are the things we can give to our customer, right? So there is empathy from on all aspects that you're building in that framework. And then you're bringing that information into a filter. Then you're taking that information and again building on it.
Right.
And everybody's got ideas. And this framework nurtures that. There's a part of the exercise which is called Crazy Eight, where you can give, because the crazy ideas that we see, we know we want to bring some of that here. Like imagine if I went to a country which does not have Blinkit and I have used Blinkit, I have used Swiggy Snack, which gets me something in 10 minutes, and they are talking about a 2 day to 3 day delivery time. I am losing my mind and I want to tell you, but then I don't have the environment and opportunity to tell you. But when you're doing a design thinking session, there's a deliberation about bring crazy
Anything and
eight
everything,
ideas in 8 minutes. And that's good because 8 minutes you're going to, whatever is your top of your mind, you're going to sketch it, draw it, and give it. Now that is taken into consideration into this process, and then you filter on it, vote on it, and bring it down. So it's a democratic way of doing it. It's a way of harnessing information, and it is way of building consensus. And building consensus, like, I know the entire usability world will talk about empathy as one of the biggest outcomes of this. For me, it's also consensus, right? Because what I just spoke to you is just book, what do you call it? The book aspect of it. When you translate it in the real world, when this hits the road, the rubber meets the road, there are people involved, and their personalities involved, and there is ego involved, right? So what this builds is it builds your consensus from day one, right? You're part of building the solution. It is your idea which is also taking shape here. His idea which is also taking shape here. So there is no resistance when the prototype is done and brought to you, other than few minor things. You're principally aligned. So this step-by-step consensus building is done beautifully in a design thinking. Oh, the objective is we also get the user's point of view in the end. We test it. It's always there.
Actually, you bring him in because he's the one who's starting the requirement.
So you always validate it. Like, see, there's also a big part is what the user doesn't know.
Yeah.
You can only compare it to what you know. Imagine if a person who's never experienced 10-minute delivery ever in their life, right?
They can't imagine this.
Then they're like, no. But we take it and say, you can get it in 10 minutes. They'll be like, I don't mind it. I like it. But you go ask the user what you want, they're not going to tell you.
That
right?
they want
a
a
10-minute
10
delivery.
minutes.
They just say, I want my goods, I want it. Right? That Ford example, right? Someone went and said, what do you want? And they said, we want a faster horse. Because they only knew a horse. There was no cars for them to come.
I think that's what, based on that, was what Steve Jobs said. The consumer doesn't know what they want. You should be able to give.
I have a slightly different aspect as well. Like if you look at cranes or tanks, how they move, the mobility has a belt on top. And this belt...
conveyor kind of a thing.
Yeah. This belt came from one of these wild ideas, which is, World War, of course. The First World War had wheels. So you could just stop the vehicular movement by digging a trench. Usko bridge banana padega. Or else make it over cover and that it slows down movement or it crashes vehicles. So then how do we ensure the fact that we still pass over the moats and the bridges and the terrain and everything? It will be great to have a vehicle that makes its own bridge. So that belt is essentially It makes its own bridge. only के
Plus,
चलता है.
then from there, what got evolved was hovercraft, but now it's lost its relevance. But
Yeah.
Okay, so that also brings to my next question that uh, for as a user, UX professional, expert, what does one need to know? Because like, let's say you're an architect,
Okay.
you need to understand foundation, bricks, cement, mortar. These are things that one can physically understand that this is the thing. In case of UX, we spoke about so many things, user experience, their psyche, their economics and all. So where does one start? What's the foundation for UX
See, I think
professional?
today it's in a great state, right? Today it's made bite-sized and provided to people. It's not the way we started where things were evolving, you had to catch up information, then you had to build your own opinion and then try it out. Today it comes like, standardizing is a big part of it. So today the enough and more courses that offer this information, right? I want to take two steps back, given where we are with AI and all that. I would advise people to look at things a little differently, right? So first is the the more we bring in patterns, the more we standardize things. Somewhere, every opportunity to be creative is now reduced. We don't need to be like creative. You can standardize things. There's something called design language and all that. So there is things that you can standardize when you're building a website. Not every time you need to create a button, right? Not every time you need to define the shape and size of it. Not every time you need to define that when I hover on it, it has to change color. When I click it, it has to change color. Right? When I submit it, I need to get. So everything can be standardized. But today we are in a state where so many things have been standardized over a period of time from the beginning of the internet till today. People have just spent time standardizing. It comes to a phase just picking it from templates and putting it. So your role, the usability person's or user experience person's role is predominantly on making sure that you do the double diamond design thinking and push out good ideas through that framework, right? So first, I would say do a UX course. You need, like, if you go to art school, you will start with history and it plays a lot of relevance, right? I do think that knowing the history of anything will tell you, you'll know how things have evolved. And at some point, you might want to redefine it. But then you will understand that, well, this has a shortcoming or this is structured this way because it evolved from here. So I think you go join any of these courses. Like HFI has got great courses, IIT's got courses, right? A lot of UX courses out there. You do any of it, you are going to learn a process of how do you do requirement gathering, how do you go about this, how did you do prototyping, what are the do's and don'ts. There's enough structure there. You're going to learn the structure, you're going to do that. Then when you come into the industry, you're going to understand that, you knowing user experience, books and, curriculum and syllabus is not enough. Design thinking is a big part of it. I'm guessing they're cooking that also into the syllabus today. So you will learn design thinking and then you will learn design sprint, which is a format. So when I started my career, it was all about the execution part of it. Because initially, people had ideas, nobody knew how to make it visually nice. So it was about execution. Then, now there's a big part of the journey where evolution, where it's come down to the intellect of it.
Right.
Right. Hey, you involved a user experience person. How did that person bring in the delight for the solution for the users with all the experience that they have? And how did they help you? If you're going to start a process the first time, then you have to invent every bit of it and you're doing it as you go. But today, if you call any usability person or anybody from the field, they're going to repeat a process they've done 100 times. So they're going to just tell you what you need to come. Like you come in, you do this, you sit here, give this information and go. So it's all well defined. So you know what you can do. So that part of now is harnessing the intellect, not just from the person, but also from the stakeholders, and then taking that and building that into bringing that voice of the customer, the intellect. And that is a big part of what you need to do today, right? From the execution. So prototyping and making it using Figma is a big part of it. But everybody thinks that, oh, if I'm going to build a website, I'm going to open Figma and I'm going to start drawing the website. Absolutely not true. You can actually give one prompt which will do it today. But what to write in the prompt and how do you envision it has to be built with a lot of intelligence, information, and empathy.
Right.
And that is what the world, or I would tell anybody who's starting their career, to focus on the intellect part of it. The execution part of it is important, but execution is also something that AI is supporting us big on, right? So that's my 2 cents of it.
This process to me sounds like it is very similar to any design process. My hero, the person with the ask or the context of the problem that I will solve as a designer, right? That is one cornerstone. Understanding him or it or whatever that is, right? The second cornerstone is while we are catering to him, one is cognizant of how is it that he can access his solution, support, wishes, or whatever this first cornerstone is addressing quickly. That is the asked experience.
Okay.
For example, let's say if he has to buy a pen, he's nuanced about his pens, right? He wants those select pieces and he's going to hold on to it. That's a very Rajesh thing to do, right? Let's say if he has to buy a pen, our man is going to go to multiple places, ask, try out, look at cost, evaluate. It will become a whole enterprise for him. Unlike you and I probably, or I'm just talking about myself here as an example. If I see a good pen, I will pick it up.
Yeah.
But rarely will I go to look for it. Which means as customers, if you have to build a UX for both of us, it's going to be completely different.
So I'll tell you how that works, right? The objective is not to build for the extremes. And you'll be surprised, right? A website is not a two-person situation. It is probably a 200,000 to that's the number of people you are going to come and see.
Right.
So your objective is to build for, that would be your objective, 80-20, 70-30, 80-20. The objective is that you build for 80-20, but you also build for situations where even for the 20% not to fail.
Right, of course.
So when you're building,
You just prep yourself with a bigger chance of success. That's all.
so when you call users for, invite users for information. So I will step into one more section after this, which is what are the substreams of UX.
Okay.
But before that, right, when you're doing user research, you're going to call people in to understand.
Right.
Let us say we have people who are like pens.
Yeah.
So, and you also use pen.
Yeah.
People from use pens to like pens, you're going to get the entire crowd. And ideally, they will break it into small groups. And each group has around 8 people.
Right.
The reason is after you get more than 8, the number of repeated ideas will increase. Like you will also say the same thing, he'll also say the same thing.
Yeah,
So that will increase with more than 8.
And you're gathering
The
volume.
number of unique ideas under 8 is the best.
Right.
But what happens is when you take all the 888, then you look at pattern, right? And when you look at what is bulk, what is an exception, right? And how much of the exception is there? If there's only one Rajesh, right? Then what they will do is first they will create for people who generally come to buy pens. Okay. When you get user information, when you get user research, you also get it in user groups and it is structured in such a way that it takes into consideration all the needs. Okay. You take all the needs and then you see what is the frequency of all the needs. And then you see, okay, but this looks like a rare situation. Interestingly, if I'm building a website for pens, you are the rare person, not him. We are expecting more people like him to come in. And in fact, if I was going to design something for you, I would first talk about all the different types, like Japanese pencils, German pencils, whatever. And then when you come down, you'll be like, obviously, upsell, cross-sell, everything, bags, get the best pouch, right? All of that to delight you, right? This is where Rajesh comes to the site. Rajesh buys a pen. Rajesh drops off. Rajesh goes to another site. Rajesh buys a pen pouch. Now you're looking at effectiveness. You're bringing that functionality here.
Right.
Right. Then Rajesh comes back. Then Rajesh clearly knows where his delivery is. Right. It is effectiveness. It is knowing your behavior, building that in so that you don't need to go into, stumbling into the entire website. Very important. And this is the foundation stone of user experience according to one great UX guy called Vittal, is that you enter a website. Like, I'm entering a website which sells pen, and you guys own that company, and you have, let us say, 500 pages.
Right.
And I am a person who was sitting and having a chai and open my phone to look for pencils because I'm just sitting alone. I want to do. I am not in your company. I don't work in your company. I don't know how many pages you have, right? So you expecting me to go through the crystal maze of things to find that pen is wrong. But you should be like, I know you. I want to bring relevant information to you and try to filter down the noise of the 500 page is good experience now.
Right.
Okay. So how do you do that? Like, obviously, 10 minutes before he came to the website, I know that Rajesh went to Instagram and he was looking at Uniball pencils, right? And after that, he looked at Japanese pencils in Muji, right? So I know that. So when I have these two pieces of information, which I buy from third party, so once I know that he's come back, Rajesh has come to the website, I'm like, okay, he saw Muji here and he saw Uniball there. I will surface this information here to him. Then I'm taking the value of what Rajesh is expecting ahead in the journey and personalizing it.
Right.
But don't expect the user to know how big your enterprise is, right? Take what is relevant to the users. That is where the world is moving towards, from a design pattern or a design, what do you call it, trend, right? That's where we're going.
So from whatever you've shared,
Yeah.
tell me whether UX design, is it a framework? Is it a method? Or is it an approach?
Now, let us say this is why it's important to know the evolution of anything, right? But when it started, there was no thought process about considering what the users want. Take the business needs, build something. So the voice of the customer came into the entire flow of thing in the form of usability as a process and an approach, right? And for that approach, over a period of time, they started building framework so that it can be repeated, right? The process, what is the process? If you take 2 steps back about anything that is a process, now let us say I'm making a process of making beer, okay? So now you have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5.
Correct.
Now, you go start make beer, I go start make beer, he goes and he's doing beer, he's creating beer.
Everybody's process is consistent.
No, everybody's got different process.
Okay.
At some point, you'll be like, you know what, we all discuss and you're like, we should do this. So then you're like, if someone is going to go start this, right, who has no idea. Now, we are veterans and we know that doing this in this particular way makes sense. It is always for the person who's new to this, right, so that it's repeatable. All of us are going to die, someone else is going to do it. How will they know what to do it? So we'll build process, right? That process tells saying that you do it in these steps to get this result, right? And a process is always a lot about an output. And I'll talk about output versus outcome later. But the idea is that you have a process to get to an output.
Correct.
And for this effort, this process you use, you will get this output. So if you want to do usability, you take this process, you will end up with this output.
Yeah.
That is how those things got defined, right? So that while you're defining that, they have frameworks built into it. So that is what it is. Inside process, they have frameworks.
Right. In some sense, principally, this is not different from me trying to design a piece of glass. Not at all. Right? Is there anything distinct that UX design has that can now, considering UX design is quite mature? Right? It's not that it's not evolving, but it's quite mature.
Yeah, it is.
In any other aspect of design that you would suggest that, hey, you know what? In interiors, considering that's also a field that you come from, this is what is happening in UX design. And this application is not there in an industry like the interiors industry.
During COVID, right? It's beautiful. Like, you don't know, what is the value of Paytm today?
I don't know.
So it must have been some 100,000 crores.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, people did not want to touch money, physically touch money. That is the actual user problem. And the solution, the usability solution was do it without touching, digital. Take all the startups which grew around that time, right? It is actually boils down to one user need, core need, right? Obviously, Paytm diversified into things where it all makes sense. Great example. I'm not trying to sell Paytm. As a user, I'm telling you what I felt. I drive around. One day, I decided to take the metro because it was peak. That stretch was going to be hell. So I got down from the car, I went into the metro, I went there, and then they said, you need to buy ticket, you need cash. Now I didn't have cash because who carries cash anymore? I took my phone and Paytm, I went there. Paytm knew that I was in the metro station. It says, hey, do you want to buy a metro ticket? So fundamentally, it is putting yourself in different situation and saying that how, like first, the birth of the core idea can be user-centric, right? And it can be towards your business. Some people find the user-centric problems and build businesses around it. Some people have businesses and they make it user-centric, right? So that is pretty much it. Making a glass. What is the difference between a glass and a great glass, right? So if why do wine glasses have stems? Because you don't want to transfer the heat of your body into the into the glass, so that is why you have stems. Usability. So I think usability has always been there, right? Looking at the context in which something is used has always been there.
Right.
When it came to software development, it was not there, and it found its way and established itself, and it became more relevant than anything else. And thanks to one, obviously there are great people who conceptualize this. Then obviously the super big daddy of all this is Steve Jobs, right? So he's like, yeah, if I want to do this in one hand, how do I do it? He brought in the, when don't build a phone that you can't. I want to hold it in one hand. I want to do this, right? And I want the font so legible that I can see it, right? Without glasses.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we all have like so many cameras, right? First time I was trying to look into a camera and I'm like, oh my God, I already have these glasses. Now I need to look at this, and it's creating so much disturbance. The camera has actually got a small
Actually,
button. Yeah, you just turn
it
it
has
and
a
it just
vision
says
corrector.
vision corrector saying that, हाँ तुम्हारे पास इतना power है तो I already incorporate that into my camera, right? So this is nothing but understanding what the user needs are. That is literally what this entire industry is about, right?
So in all of this, entire UX explanation that you have done so far has got everything to do from human psychology, economics, data analytics, human behavior, everything. Where's design in this? How is it creative?
For me as a person, and I'll answer this a little personal, for me, design is life, right? Like everything that we do, it's like what an artist does, right? Bring art, like, creativity to life. You can do this with the least amount of design. You can do this with the most amount of design. That is literally it. Steve Jobs took something which was rudimentary, made it usable, but he poured every bit of design in it by which it became outstanding. So, pouring design into it is up to you, right? Usability is a process which is user centricity. There is no boundaries. You can put creativity into anything. Literally. And today I had such a long conversation. I was driving down. I've never done a podcast, right? And I chat with ChatGPT all the time. Right. I named her Linda. I drive and I'm like, hey, Linda, what do you think? So Linda and I debate, argue. Right. So, and I'm like, yeah, there's so much of AI coming in. How do you say? Literally, the entire conversation is about anything that is repeatable, a machine AI is going to do. Right. If you're going to take this the entire information and build a prototype, you write a prompt. I know this. Figma has got something called Figma Make. Every software has got something. You write a prompt, it'll do it. Now you have a lot of user information. As a person, you've deliberated and brought it in. That is something that you've done. And yeah, AI will do it. If you have a creative angle to it and you pour that into that prompt, it is going to be more creative. Like, you put garbage, you'll get garbage.
Right.
Even if you put garbage, sometimes it'll give you something intelligent, more than what you gave. But if you actually put the user insights and creativity into it, you will get a better product. So design is not a must, right? But if you put design into it, creativity into it, you just make it better. Everything is about, and anything that is good design costs us more, right? There are cameras which look like cameras, and there are cameras which look like vintage cameras, which cost more than the other cameras just because it looks vintage. It has got an aspect of creativity which has gone inside. It differentiates it by that. So I think creativity is a differentiator in what you do, right? So, first of all, to take any information to a user, you need a basic amount of creativity, because anything which is just plain skeletal and just lines is not going to impress anybody, right? But they still use it. I still use IRCTC, right? But do I prefer going to another website to do it? Do I prefer going to like make my trip, to book my ticket, or like red bus to do it, because it has got that visual or creative aesthetics to it. Yes, of course. Right? But there are people who will still use it even if it doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So end of the day, the answer to that question is creativity makes everything better, right? And this is what the entire ocean of AI and what it's all, where the dust is going to settle, is everybody is going to have capability to do anything, right? Everybody would be able to do design thinking, would be able to be a UX person, would be able to be a product person, could be a analytics person. AI is going to empower. It's a tool in your hand, and it is like water. It'll take form and shape of what you want to do. It'll empower you to do it. But what is going to make something monumental is the creativity you put inside. So once you add creativity to the mix, the product and outcomes is going to be more.
You've worked with some of the biggest international names. I think they're probably the biggest firms across the
Walmart,
world.
JP Morgan,
JP
Polaris.
Morgan, and then Adobe and Walmart and all of them. And you've been in the UX UI field of
Yeah.
department of this. There is a design culture that is being followed there.
Mhm.
Now, if these or that design culture was to be followed by an Indian firm, could that be done?
I think it is not a culture that was defined in the US that is followed here. I think that is a misconception, right? What always shines, right, is intellect and creativity. And no matter where it comes from, right? That has no geography definition. If you have intellect, if you have creativity, that is going to shine. And if obviously it has to have other things like hard work,
Sure.
right? And some ability to market. So those things, like like if you say, is there some, like I would put it a little differently, right? I think the Indian, like 9 out of 10 times I've quoted Swiggy and Paytm more than I've quoted other sites, right? And they are quoted internationally. When I go to different geographies and I talk, they just talk about how their mind is blown about how user friendly Swiggy is, right? They just, and how intuitive it is, how you know exactly to track it. You won't believe the amount of money that is spent on returns in any e-commerce organization, right? Okay. Returns is a big part of the journey.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, it is also delivery on like biggest, like, there's something called NPS, which is the net promoter score. And which basically tells you that will a customer recommend you to another customer only if they like you. And predominantly when you do an NPS, you'll find out why people don't like you. Right? You'll be very surprised. Like when you do an NPS survey, they'll be like, I ordered so many things. I could not find out where those things are. I was not at home, right? Things that we have nailed as a part of experience, right? You know when it's coming, you know how it is, how to cancel it. You know every little journey, you've taken it, you've broken it down. And what is amazing about India's population, whereas people will have entered, the rest of the world has very little population compared to us. So we have more information. When we try something out, naturally it is tried by more people that they'll ever try. So my point is, the geography is already established as a global player in this field, right? There is no differentiation between someone who's from this geography to another, or from the skill or a culture that they have. We bring it. Like I said, what matters to any company across the world is the same thing. We have Sundar Pichai running it, Shantanu running it, right? So, like I said, intellect does not, there is no geographical or, where you come from tied to it. So, that's my answer. What is it that you should nurture in a company when you're building a design team? Harvest creativity, right? Most important thing is you need to be, like, we are all designers, right? If I asked you to come in a tie and a shirt and wear formal shoes, what we are doing is we are suffocating you. Because a big part of our expression is the way we look and how we present ourselves. So all this plays a role in that culture, right? Biggest part of it is letting the person be who they are within some rules. Obviously, you do not, like, there has to be some social rules, but within that framework, letting them be creative is a big part of it, right? Creativity cannot be forced, and we cannot be putting it in a bloody cage and thinking that it will give output and outcome. I think creative people need a little bit of space, right? They need to work in places which reflect the aesthetics, reflect some of the design thing, like, beliefs. All that is a big part of it. And if you go to any of these companies, fantastic. The offices that we have, I have been to offices of JP Morgan in India, which look way better than some of the offices in the US, because it's new and every bit of equipment is state of the art, things that will soundproof. The walls feel like, it does not feel like a cement. What it is, it's got texture, it's got personality, it's got color, right? The office that I work in today, the entire color schema is just pleasing. There is nothing, no stark white.
Is it grey?
No, it's not gray. If it was gray, then I would just stay and not go back home. But having said that, I think I digress. In principle, what I'm saying is, if you want to build a culture of, first, creative people, some of them are quiet, right? Not all creative people talk as much as I do, right? You should know how to nurture creativity. You should know how they can speak their mind. Or maybe if they don't speak, it's fine, but they're giving you the output, they're writing it down. All this is what defines the culture, right? These are small things that go into it. There's no big framework. The framework of any organizations are all tied around respecting individuals, valuing individuals' point of view, right? Having integrity. All these are big motor. I go to any company, they build, these are the founding principles on which they build their culture, right? So those predominantly are on the same ground: value for customers, integrity, right? All that is what your core cultural aspects are. But you need creating a design team. When you're building that part of the muscle for that organization, you should also look at, okay, creative people, first, you can't restrict how they are. They need to be free. You need to give them an environment where they can think freely and they feel like they can be who they are. That is a big part of it, right? When I was in a small SI, they were always informals. Then I got this boss, and this guy I love, his name is Gaurav Dal. He's like, how can creative people be like this, right? And we were allowed to go in t-shirts. We're the only part of the organization who are doing in t-shirts. And one day there's a client who's at one of the international, Fortune 500. And I'm so used to, I've worked in that company for 13 years. I'm so used to saying that, oh shit, I'm not in my suit today. Because I know every other guy who's going to be there in that room from this company is going to be in a suit. I looked at Gaurav and said, is your suit going to talk? No. What he did, this is darling, that is culture. He went into the room before me and he said, hey, my creative director is going to come into the room, right? And he is not going to look like any of these other guys in a suit. But listen to him, he's got interesting things to say. So now that is culture, right? That is building. I had so much freedom in that team. I went berserk. We painted an entire wall end to end one day, right? We just sat down and painted an entire wall. All artists got their paints and they just painted it. It is the most beautiful piece of art I have seen. In another company, we went and bought notebooks, like books, not notebooks, novels, old novels, 500 of them, stuck it to a wall and painted the Game of Thrones dragon, because we were all watching Game of Thrones, with the company's logo embedded in it, right? Nobody paid us to do this, but you're just letting them be creative. So creativity is a lot about expression, right? That's all it boils down to, creative expression. I literally, that is the person that I am, right? If I'm going to be doing this, it's a creative expression for me. If I'm going to be designing, it's a creative expression. If I'm going to be painting, it's going to be creative expression. If I'm going to be acting, it's going to be creative expression. That's what any creative person is. She or he wants to express themselves. And you let them be. You let them voice that out. You give them the air and room to grow. That is culture to me.
My last discussion for now is you were in physical space.
Yeah.
Designing interiors.
Yeah.
Doing sketching, drawing. From there, you moved to a digital space.
Yeah.
Where digital space design is one aspect, but all this thing that we discussed about user experience and all of that is a completely different experience. But in a physical space or a physical design category, like say architecture, interior design, artists, sculptors, generally there is this thing that, an artist cannot make money.
Yeah.
I think a mental block that everybody has, and there are very few either artists or architecture firms or interior design firms, which are large scale making money, or that's even their goal at the end of the day. But from whatever you have said, there is a lot of parallels that are there.
Yeah.
Whatever we just discussed,
Yeah.
there is so much that can go from here into the physical space. A lot of this, if it's adapted into the physical space, can help every creative individual reach a much larger space. What's your take on that?
The answer to this is Japan.
Hmm.
For me, like the first day I went to Adobe for my interview, I was ready to sign the check. No matter what they gave me, I would have taken the job, because for me that was the pinnacle of creativity, right? Similarly, for physical space, the pinnacle of creativity, and according to me, is Japan. Because they have taken what I just said, the voice of the user, into every aspect of what they do in product design, space design. You buy a noodle, it'll automatically heat up because they know that you're going to heat it up and eat it. It's got a heating pad attached to it. You don't even need to go put it in the microwave. So you're just taking what the users do into your process of creating something, which is not, you're a noodle making company. You're making noodles, but you're thinking about how they're going to eat it, right? So this about money, right? There are different aspects to it. For a person to be successful, it is never about the space that they are in. It is about what that person brings to the table.
Hmm.
Right? If you're an interior designer, you're an architect, and you are designing spaces, and you took into all the users' needs and built it into your design, you're carving a space for yourself. But then there are people who are going to challenge you through the process, and you might give up. So being bold is an important part of you being successful, right? And that is true to every business, every aspect of life. People who make it are build their traits on being bold, not giving up what they want or what they have as an idea. I think those hold true for a recipe for success predominantly, no matter what field it is. Take acting, take being an entrepreneur, take being a UX person. So the question is, like, I deal with a lot of people, right? And in my line of work, and you see that the people who are successful, right, they have some of those things. That is very people dependent. Art is about being very bold. The best pieces of art ever are the boldest. The best fashion clothes or apparel are the boldest. And why do people want to buy it? Because they're like, oh my God, I want to be that bold. I want to take that boldness into what I wear, right? So be it fashion, be it interior design, right? Jeffrey Bauer, you were talking about space, right? And I love Jeffrey Bauer and how you transition, like you're in a room and then it transitions to an open space, then it transitions back. That is bold. No one was doing that in that time, right? So I think a lot of these things of being successful, like, we can all probably sit down and discuss it, and we will see patterns, right? In a field, you first need to put in the hard work. In my life, something that I learned when I was an interior designer, I had to sell every time. I have not stopped selling till today. I go into a room, I am selling an idea. I go into a room, I'm selling why the users need to do it. I am selling something, right? So one part of it, being a successful person, you never stop selling. To to sell something, you need to believe in it, and to believe in it, you need to have an amount of skill, right? I will only be able to sell it with so much passion if I knew that what I'm selling is of some level of quality. So all this just comes together. So the long answer for it is this field or any other. Like I've been discussing with a lot of my friends who are into movie making and people who want to make movies and acting. The same holds good over there. There is a very famous audition where a person stumbles into a room and they have to act, and this person is stumbled into the room, not supposed to be there, has to act because someone is waiting for them and he doesn't want to get caught. He just takes that and he just makes it their own, right? He's expressing himself, he throws the table and he sits down. These are things, props they never thought will be moved. They thought people will all sit on the chair. He throws the chair, he sits on the floor, he holds his head, he made it his own. Making it your own is very important. And the minute you make it your own, you'll be able to sell it. You'll be able to tell people that, hey, this is better than what you're going to get because I have put a piece of me into this. like my intellect, and I will tell you that I'm very confident about it. These are traits which will help you no matter what field. You take design, you make it. How do you make it your own? You are going to do the same design what someone else is doing. You're not making it your own. You're going to make it your own with something that you believe in, something someone is not right. You're going to bring that information, going to take the user experience and saying that I'll make it my own like this. You put it together and then you present it to someone that will sell more than what the other person is selling. I went into preaching mode, but the truth is, this is what I strongly believe. I think this is what I strongly believe is one of the formulas for success. Like, I don't think I'm writing the book on success, or I think I'm the most successful. No, but believe this. I see this in people. Like, obviously, we all have time to sit and look at, okay, what is Sundar Pichai doing? What is Elon Musk doing? We all are wondering. And this is my take on it.
What has been your experience of having this conversation with us?
What is awesome about this is, I don't know, I think you guys should be psychologists because I can't stop talking, right? I couldn't stop talking. And I usually am very, very careful about what I speak because there's a sense of judgment, there's nothing over here. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job of making people comfortable. This is very, this is a space where I'm feeling very safe and I'm just letting loose. I think trust and how you conduct it, and especially given that how psychologically equipped you are for getting people to talk, I think it's fantastic. And I realized that though I didn't come with structure, you brought in structure with your questions very subtly, right? And because I'm sure you want to compile this and give it in a format which is, with good structure, right? I think that is fantastic. I think that is really great. Uh, the coffee was good. Yeah. But most importantly, safe, psychological safety, like, and good intentions, right? That is something which I really love. More importantly, you're creative people. I think that is why this conversation is so good. I've never had the comfort of talking to someone who did not have this kind of background because then I had to explain myself. I had to explain my intention. I didn't think I had to do that at all. We all started off with that foundation saying that, hey, we're all creative people. We're getting together. We're having this conversation. It is very light. It is very nice. So that is my feedback. It was really nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this with us and taking time out in spite of all the fiasco that we had on the time management and stuff. So, no, but even then, and I think like we mentioned, we always go back unfinished with most of our guests. You being no
This
different,
is very unfinished. This is very unfinished.
and we can make this into a completely different portfolio for ourselves. So I think we will explore that option. And again, thank you very much for doing this with us. If you like what you listened, whatever you heard, do like, share, subscribe. Thank you.